You're listening to Lifestyle Locker Radio, episode 011 with Garrett Gunderson. Our guest today, Garrett Gunderson, tackles a topic of money and finance that is critically important yet normally neglected by most business owners, mostly due to the painfully boring presenters in this field and an antiquated philosophy of accumulation, which is typically harmful advice for entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur, a financial advocate, and the founder of Wealth Factory, and an author of the New York Times best-selling book, Killing Sacred Cows, Garrett has dedicated his career to making personal finance for entrepreneurs simple, immediately actionable, and even enjoyable. He has appeared on the television shows ABC's Good Money, Your World with Neil Cavuto on Fox, CNBC's Squawk on the Street, although he's actually kicked off of that one, First Business, as well as hundreds of radio interviews, podcasts like this, and newspaper articles, and his firm was named to the Inc. 500. Garrett brings passion to debunking the many widely accepted myths and fabrications that undermine the philosophy and joy of millions of business owners. His mission is to manufacture economic independence for 1 million entrepreneurs, show 100,000 businesses how to eliminate budgeting and capture wealth without cutting back, help 10,000 businesses buck the banking system and establish a way to earn interest rather than pay it, and deliver a comprehensive financial team for 2,000 up-and-coming businesses so they too can have access to a Rockefeller-style virtual family office, which is a complete financial team. And if you want to keep more of what you make and boost your bottom line without having to cut back, work harder, or take any additional risk, Garrett is your guy. All right, everybody, here we have Garrett Gunderson. Well, Garrett, thank you so much for being on Lifestyle Locker Radio.
Good to be with you, Josh.
Yeah, so pre-call, and I didn't even just tell you this. I was poking through your websites, the Wealth Factory, Killing Sacred Cows. And actually, I was at my father's house the other day, and I saw he had this book. I'm like, I didn't know he had this other book. It was the Rockefeller book. What would the Rockefellers do? So I went on and downloaded the book and all of this stuff right before the call. I'm like, wow, man, this guy's got more information than I could ever imagine. And it's good information. So why don't you go ahead? I know a lot of people probably know of you. A lot of people don't know everything about you. And I don't want to know everything, but I want to know your story from, where your first thought was like, man, I got to get involved with money. And the vitalistic, if you will, part of money here. So give us your story, man.
Well, I mean, to get involved with the vitalistic part of money, that came about in my early 20s. And it was simply because most of my clients in the financial world, which I started when I was 19, said I was a financial planner, but I was really no more than an insurance and mutual fund salesman for the most part. But a lot of my family and the parents of my friends were all clients. And now the market started to go down in the year 2000. And so rather than tell them that the market was on sale or they're in it for the long haul or all that stuff that we've heard before, I decided that wasn't good enough and just started to research and discover what else was out there. And that's where I started to develop that kind of vitalistic philosophy around money. And I knew that I wanted to get involved in money, not as a business guy in money. I just knew I wanted to be in business when I was a kid. I had no idea what business I was going to get into. And that was like my biggest fear as a kid is like, what business am I going to choose? But I wanted to make money. I wanted to go into business for myself. But when I was really young, all I thought of business is when we would like drive around and I would see like storefronts, right?
Yeah.
And I would just in my head say, these guys can't make that much money, like it just didn't ever seem that impactful or that profitable. And when I started my first business and won $5,000 for being the Young Entrepreneur of the Year, I then had to take that money and figure out what I was going to do with it. I could have just spent it, but I didn't want to spend it. I wanted to grow it. I wanted to invest it. I was kind of a miser to a certain degree. I just saved everything that came into me. And And so at that point, that led me on a journey of figuring this out. When the market went down, it led me on a deeper journey. And I just asked the question, what can you do in the world of finance that's guaranteed? And I realized that wasn't a product. It wasn't an investment. It was really around efficiency, coordinating things and having them work more synergistically. And probably the only guaranteed thing you could do is invest in relationships, invest in learning and knowledge. Now, whether you apply that or not, whether you ruin those relationships, you can still have losses like any other investment, but government can't take it away from you. Economies can't necessarily take it away from you. So that's what kind of I decided to do.
That's really cool. I mean, that's a big word to use, I guess, in the financial word, guarantee, right?
I think it's illegal. I don't think I was allowed to say it out loud. I think I had to just think it in my head. Yeah. And I realized pretty quickly there wasn't really products, or there weren't many products for that matter, that were guaranteed. And a lot of the ones that were probably wouldn't keep up with inflation. So, I remember for 2 straight years and 2 months, I flew somewhere every single month to interview people, to attend events. Like, this is before I was married, when I was starting to graduate college and, get out into the world at a deeper level. I just immersed myself. I wanted to figure it out. I had a little memo pad with so many questions. That thing was so filled up. Then I went to a different size memo pad because I had so many things. And I would just go and ask questions, and people would say, "Oh, you can talk to this guy, Jeffrey Krugler. He knows that." And I fly to New York. I'd meet with him for a day, and he'd say, "Oh, you're asking real detailed questions. Meet with this actuary here." And they were like so quiet I could barely hear him, and only looked at the floor. And I mean, but I was on a quest. I wanted to figure it out. And I wish I would have figured out some of it sooner, because I still made a lot of investing mistakes. I still had a lot of things that didn't work and go completely according to plan. But at the same time, that's what prompted me to write Killing Sacred Cows. That was like a confessional of all the mistakes I had made, And rather than pretend I was perfect like some financial people try to do, I was like, I'll just expose it and admit it, and let's have a bunch of people learn together.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, just listening to your story, and I didn't know all of that, obviously. I feel like, maybe before you even got out of college, you may have had, or we were building very close to that 10,000 hour rule of being a complete expert. I mean, like at 21 years old, knowing what guys in the financial world may not even know being 20 or 30 years in. They're just sitting behind a desk.
Well, because a lot of times they learn something and then they just reinforce that learning for every single year to justify why they do what they do, to further give evidence to whether they're doing the right thing or not. And usually they're just looking for the evidence of, if it is, to further increase their confidence, whether it's the right thing for that client or not. And sometimes just in the financial world, we're trained improperly. The system and structure is kind of ill-equipped to deliver the results. And many times, when I was trained early on, I was fulfilling someone else's agenda, which didn't always match up to the client's agenda. It was just about, all the training was around building trust, building relationships. It wasn't really around strategy around finance. That was kind of the afterthought. And even if it was a strategy, it was a one size fits all, or here's the different ways that you could sell that strategy depending on the different phase of someone's life. I mean, there's a big reason why the money game has failed so many people. It's that it isn't intended to empower people. It's intended to kind of enslave people, to just rely upon others because we're told it's too complicated, and just invest with the experts and they'll take care of it. And then it'll be there for us one day, someday. But unfortunately, that one day, someday, when it comes, people find out it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And now it's kind of too late. All the things that they were told were their friend, like time value of money, that's no longer around unless they want to wait another 30 years. Telling them that high risk is going to create high return. They watch losses, many times wipe out so much of their hard work, or told that it takes money to make money. So they're scrimping and budgeting and setting money aside in hopes it'll be better. And then, dude, how pissed off would people be is they do all that. They work so hard. They miss out on experiences in life in the name of saving money. And then when they get there, it was a failed financial experiment, that there was no connection to their outcome and that person's compensation. Well, there was some, but it was minimal. They got paid one way or the other. They might have been paid more had they been more successful. And I think because we can use a lot of jargon in the financial world, and we can kind of, it feels intimidating, and it takes courage to face. And it's a busy world where people with businesses and families and everything, it's like, when do you have extra time to go research all the nuances of a 401k? And so what do? You go, well, everyone else is doing it. I guess I'll just do that. But then I'm here saying, well, 401ks, they really suck. I mean, they're really a problem because there's no cash flow to them. They're controlled by the government. They have a huge amount of fees. They're typically predicated completely upon a stock market that's underperformed. There's taxes on it when you withdraw, even though there's a deferral up front. It feels like there's a tax advantage, but there's not really. So the more I go, the more people kind of get pissed off sometimes. But then I go, guess what? There's a good solution. The solution is, let's just give you some basic framework that allows you to be really powerful with your money and make really informed decisions so you don't have to just follow the yellow brick road that leads to disappointment.
That's huge. I mean, that's me. You're speaking to me. It's like, years ago, learning about and reading the book and going through like, wow, 401k, stuff is so freaking complicated. Who wants to, you'd almost have to go to somebody else and say, here, just take my money because I have no idea. I don't want to know. It's too damn confusing. Like the jargon, all of this stuff, talk to me about doctor stuff. I'm good, man. Mention bones and nerves and so on and so forth. But, I think it's good to have, like you said, a framework where you can actually start to like chunk things down, make them a little simpler to understand. And, I think you're doing a pretty awesome job, one, in explaining it, one in your books. And I can't wait to read what the Rockefellers do. What would the Rockefellers do? And, with money, we got a lot of different types of audience listening to the podcast. We may have like the young 18-year-old, 19-year-old like yourself, entrepreneur that wants to get into business for themselves. We may have the stay-at-home mom that's like, what can I do while someone else is working for me? And I got to take care of the kids. And she wants to be productive. This is one of the questions that I've down here is, there's really two parts. What do you think really prevents people from being financially actually free? And then the second part, hold on for a second here. What's really the difference between being financially free and being financially independent? I know those are two sets of wording that may sound similar to people, but dive into that for me.
Well, we were touching on this a second ago.
Yeah.
When there isn't a framework, I mean, imagine if we all have cars, but there aren't roads. How do you utilize that? There's no framework. We have lines in the road, so there's less crashes. We have lights, so these are all frameworks. You add lights, you add lines, you add streets. All of a sudden, cars become more valuable. In finance, it's like we're all told that we've got to get a car. And that car might be called a retirement plan, but we're not told what kind of fuel to put in the car, how to maintain the car, how to drive the car. We're on a road we don't see, there's no headlights. We don't even see where the hell we're going. I mean, like, this is why there's such a problem. And the other issue is there's just kind of this philosophy out there that financial freedom exists outside of ourselves. Like the financial institutions want you to believe once you have enough money in an account, that account and that money is going to create financial freedom. But there is no financial freedom in money. Financial freedom is in the state of mind that you have. It simply, is money your primary reason or excuse why you do or don't do something? If it's the primary reason, you're not financially free. You're enslaved to money. So financial independence, on the other hand, is where you have enough cash flow coming in from your assets that doesn't require daily involvement. You still have to monitor it, manage it. You still have to maintain it. It doesn't mean it becomes passive, because passive income is a misnomer. Passive income doesn't exist very often. It might happen sometimes, but it's the exception, not the rule. And when people are looking for passive income, they're going to watch their money pass them by, because if someone says, oh yeah, buy real estate, it's passive. Hell no, it's not passive, because you have deferred maintenance, you have tenants, you have property managers, you have, you just have issues. You have to deal with financing. You have to know
that well.
Right? So it's like, so financial independence is just recurring revenue that comes in, whether you show up to the office the next day, that covers your expenses. Financial freedom is how you view the world. It's your mindset and your perspective. And money's still a consideration when you're financially free. It doesn't mean that we all of a sudden start making it rain and burn money and all that kind of stuff, right?
No.
Like that's not what financial freedom is, because that would be a temporary situation. Financial freedom is simply, okay, I'm out in the world making choices, money's not the primary reason. It's just a consideration. And, there's an epidemic in the world of I can't afford it. That's like the ultimate, as you say that, then people let you off the hook. And I'm sure as a doctor, you've heard people say, I can't afford it.
Without a doubt.
You can't afford it, but you've got a 401k. So let's just think about this for a minute. Neglect your health, save for your 401k, and then when you retire, you can extinguish that 401k just in a couple of years on nursing homes and hospitals and regret. And the hard thing, Josh, is it's hard for us to understand what it's going to be like 20 years from now. So have imagine if we could have a conversation with ourselves 20 years from now. We're like, hey, what lessons did you learn? What habits would you want me to form? What worries could I eliminate? But one of the things they would say is, hey, I want you to love yourself 20 years from now. And some of your choices right now are not helping you love yourself because you're not taking care of your health. We're going to end up in the hospital a lot doing stuff that is no fun and the fear of all the tests and all that kind of stuff. And it's that proverb. A man with his health has infinite dreams. A man without has but one. And the thing is, if all of a sudden people say, I can't afford it as an excuse, we don't think of ways to afford it. And my framework is to always ask, what would it take? How can I afford it? I'm heading to Italy next week for a couple of months. We're going to live there.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
As my wife gave very specific instructions to Vanessa, who's booking it for us, Vanessa's like, I found 2 properties that fit the description in Italy. Like, it was pretty specific, like close to the water, in Tuscany, lots of land, just all this kind of stuff. We could have a guest there. So when the price tag came back, it was higher than we both expected. And my wife was like, yeah, we shouldn't do it. I said, is the number one reason we're not doing this just the money? She said, yes. I said, what if in the next 2 weeks, I could add enough value in the marketplace, add enough value in the world to pay for this? And if I could figure that out, and if I could do that, and obviously, I don't know everybody listening, so here's the caveat: in a freaking ethical way, for crying out loud. There's so many stupid things out there in the world that people are selling. But I said, then what do you think? She's like, okay. I'm like, all right, let me go to work on it. And you know what? I just send out like 20 of my books. I'm like, cool. I'm sending 20 books to key influencers. One of them said, this is awesome. I connected with my co-author. They did a large transaction and it paid for Italy. So I'm like, sweet. I mean, the money didn't come in for, I don't know, a while, but we had an earmark. We knew it was coming in and we wanted to make a third deposit at the time. So yeah, I mean, if otherwise I would have just said, oh, we can't afford it. Then we just shut down possibility and we just kind of feel bad, I guess, and that kind of thing. And I just think people do that far too often. And look, if someone actually was listening to this in a third world country and they're barely scraping by to get enough food and they're dealing with disease and famine, this advice is stupid. But anyone that lives in a world where we're exchanging with dollars and you're not worried about getting enough calories to eat for the day, this is actually very, very simple things to do. It's just not easy for people to understand it.
Yeah, the mindset. I mean, as I'm listening to you talk and thinking of how I've been brought up and my thoughts on money, mindset and money is huge. Like that poverty consciousness versus a wealth consciousness. Even if you're just starting out and have no money, and having your why, like you were talking about, why you actually have to do things, or why are you going to Italy? Because it's going to add value to your life. I mean, your relationship with your wife and these things. So, I mean, would you say a why, like people's why they're doing things is an important thing as far as in the finance world?
Well, here's the thing. If you don't relate to your money, meaning you're just trying to accumulate it. And I think the biggest problem, well, not the second biggest problem in money is this accumulation thought process and methodology. Set it and forget it. Save early, save often, save always. We're just guilted into that in society. But it doesn't take into consideration performance. It doesn't take into consideration how we're going to utilize it. I mean, even if I say the word expense, how do most people react to the word expense? Is that a positive or negative reaction?
That's a negative reaction to most people.
Right. But if you didn't have an expense, you could never utilize money. Expense actually means utilization of money. And guess what? Your income is someone else's expense. So if people get stuck in this mindset of, scrimping and pinching pennies so they get blisters on their fingers, and they're just trying to eliminate expenses so they can set money aside. That's kind of the scarcity combined with accumulation. And the problem with that is it blinds us to value creation, and value creation is what actually generates wealth. So if all of a sudden it's all about what we can save rather than what we can contribute as our main mantra in life, we become misers, cut off possibility to deliver value, and therefore it takes longer to get wealthy because no one shrinks their way to wealth. So expenses aren't necessarily bad. I mean, I classify them in 4 ways because there are destructive expenses, and I think you should eliminate destructive expenses. You know, those vices that are perpetual, or addictions, those things that lead towards debt, you know, that you don't have an asset attached to it. Those are destructive. Get rid of those. But there's lifestyle expenses. I'm going to Italy. It's a lifestyle expense because I paid cash for it. You know what? It was an expense, but if I didn't do it, it's not like Italy is going to directly bring income in my pocket. It may or may not. I mean, it's not direct. It would be indirect if you look at it.
Yeah.
But then there's a third type of expense, which is a protective expense. I mean, I'm insured well against catastrophic things. I have good asset protection. I have good corporate structure. I have liquidity, because those are all protective expenses. And some people skip that in the name of saving. Oh, I won't worry about that because I don't want to be insurance poor. And guess what? They become poor when the incident happens that derails them and destroys their wealth. But the fourth type of expense is the most important. It's a productive expense. You know, and this is where it's difficult sometimes for people, because a productive expense, like when I go through and invest in my education by being in a mastermind, I invest in going to an event, I invest in, you know, whatever it is, and I'm spending all this money. Some people look at it as an expense. I look at it as a productive one, because I'm like, yes, it's not going to show up on a piece of paper tomorrow, but it increases my capacity to deliver value. And anything I can invest in to increase my capacity will outperform investing in outside investments that I don't control. So people think of investing as mutual funds, stocks, bonds, real estate, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think of investing as knowledge, you know, insight, innovation, creativity. And I also think of investing as building networks, organizations, subscribers, you know. And so that's why my bigger investment became killing sacred cows. That was an investment instead of my 401k. A bigger investment was growing and building Wealth Factory and hiring really good people. I looked at that as an investment. So those are all productive expenses. And, you know, I'll just say to the chiropractors out there, here's where I feel you go. Here's where you're led astray. Here's where you're led astray by your profession. Somehow it's been indoctrinated within chiropractic that if people hire cheaply, they'll save money. You know what? You hire cheaply and you don't get A-teamers, you lose money and you hurt your community. You hurt your patients, but most importantly, you hurt yourself, because now they're going to occupy your mind. Now you're going to have to pick up the slack. Now you're going to hit adrenal fatigue, health issues, stress, losing sleep. It is such bullshit. And if that's how you're going to go about things, is not hiring, and you know what? Pay 50% more for an A-teamer. Pay 100% more. Doesn't matter, because the bottom line is they're going to produce so much more. Like Steve Jobs said, it was 100 to 1. 100 to 1. You spend $1, you get 100 back from an A-teamer.
That's
awesome.
You know,
IBM said it was 5,200% higher production. So most people just can't classify expenses and get to productive expenses because they're in the accumulation mindset. I've got to put money into my retirement plan. And instead of putting it into people, they're putting it into products that they don't really understand. And it's going to be a letdown one time or another. I'd rather just break the bad news now that these plans are absolutely going to disappoint. So why keep funding it? I mean, don't fund it if you have high interest rate loans. Pay the high interest rate loans off. Don't fund it if you haven't built liquidity. You don't have at least 6 months of expenses set aside in the savings account. Don't fund it if you haven't got your corporation in place. Don't fund it if you haven't got a good accountant in place. All those things are going to pay off in a bigger way. And yet when I talk to people, that's just the sacred cow that they've been funding because everyone said to do it. And you know what? I'm kind of tired of it, Josh, and I'm just tackling it right now.
Wow, and that's big, you know, for the chiropractors, for I guess for all the people that run in their business that are looking to pinch, you know, in different areas, just so they can maybe have a little more in their pocket or a little more in their, at least in their mind, they're doing that. and we just did this. We just brought in a new doc in our practice, and man, I am so excited because paying more than we've ever paid any new doc in the practice. But when we found him, this guy was an awesome go-getter. And I'm like, this guy's going to bring value to the practice, is going to bring value to himself. And then we can maybe create a reproducible thing where we bring in awesome people all the time so the practice can grow and we can serve more people. We can help our community. And I'm seeing that the tip of the iceberg right now with our new doc in our practice. And, we're investing heavily in him. I don't want to say praying is the wrong word, but knowing where he's coming from with his track record, if he reproduces himself here, we're going to do awesome. So I didn't know that until now. I've been in practice 11 years and we've had our fair share of people that, just wanted to sit and warm a seat, and they were less expensive. Their expense was less to us. And
right.
It didn't serve us well either.
Your production was massive. The cost of your production was massive.
Exactly. So we're spending all this money, but I had to work my ass off more to make things work better. And it was just a nightmare. And so, that really hit home what you just said to me. And I'm sure that people that are listening, whether you're a chiropractor, whether you're, you own a corporation, a Fortune 500 corporation, these are things, I think these are principles that you can apply not only to a small business, but grand scale, or even to the stay-at-home business person that you got their home office or something. So that's really, really cool. So about money now, since this is all about money, I want to dive in, just change the subject for 1 second, because this is something I've struggled with, and I'm sure lots of people have. Budgeting. Budgeting is a pain in the, pain in the ass. So I know you have some thoughts on how people budget or not to budget or anything like that.
Yeah, I think budgeting creates a restrictive mindset. It's a constraint-based philosophy. Where it's useful is if you're a train wreck. If you're spending more than you make, you got to budget. I'm sorry. But if you're just not sure how to get ahead, or you're getting ahead and you want to get there faster, there's alternatives to budgeting. And the first thing that you could do is set up a separate account. Just go to your bank, set up a separate account than your business checking or your personal checking. And I call it a wealth capture account. And then every time you take a personal paycheck, you take a percentage off the top. And this was talked about in Richest Man in Babylon, a book written in the 1920s by George S. Clason. He said, pay yourself first.
Great book.
Simple, but crazily effective. Pay yourself first. So I believe in working towards this, but getting 18% off the top. I actually take 15% and put it into my wealth capture, and I put 3% in the living wealthy account. The living wealthy account just says, hey, if I hit my 15%, I get 3% for myself to spend however the hell I want it.
Okay.
If I want to buy new clothes, if I want to buy fine wine, if I want to go get a suite at a hotel.
Go to Italy for 2 months?
Class, whatever it is. That living wealthy account's your reward because you're paying yourself first, so that you connect that and you get some dopamine response from it. So you're paying yourself first, 15%. There's a reason for 15%. Work up towards it. But then with the rest of the money, this is all you have to do. Either every week or every month, depending on your level of how successful. If you're just starting out, do it every week. If it gets going really well, maybe do it once a month. Just do a finance meeting. I call it a weekly or monthly wealth summit. And that wealth summit, you're just saying, hey, did we borrow any money above what we already had? And you're making sure that you didn't go beyond your means. You're making sure that you didn't spend more than what was left over. But I'll tell you, you want to be more resourceful. You want to have more resources. Pay yourself first. You'll figure out the rest. I've had people like this. This woman, Melinda, was recently a single mom, launching and starting a new division in her business because she'd been working in media for a long time, and her business was just kind of starting to do well. And I told her this 18% off the top. She did it, and then we of course helped her save $22,000 in tax, which helps out because now she was a business owner, and you get a lot more tax deductions than when you're not a business owner. And so that was a new thing for her, and she got a new accountant. So it was pretty easy for her to actually start saving. Now we are 2 years later. She has her 6 month savings. She's got extra money and that she can now choose to invest and do what she wants with it. She feels a lot more at ease. She's got peace of mind because that money's there, which gives her better performance as an individual, not feeling like she was one incident away from putting her kids in a bad spot, especially going off and starting a business and getting divorced. So like she did it. And I've seen so many people do this over and over again, and this is the most common comment. It was easier than I thought. I don't feel like I've lowered my lifestyle. This is automated. I set it up as a sweep account where it just automatically, every time I make a deposit, there's a percentage that goes in this other account. I don't even have to think about it. I've had other people set it up with their payroll service that they just get 2 paychecks, one for them to spend and live on and one to go to their wealth capture account. That's how mine was set up for a long time. As with our payroll service. And then I changed some of how my compensation works, which is neither here nor there. But the bottom line is, you set this up and you're just going to have more wealth. You're going to have a better situation. And don't discount its simplicity because if you don't do it, life gets complicated. There's just an insatiable appetite sometimes for people when money is laying around, whether it's their business that wants to use it or whether it's them personally. And if you'll just do this, I promise you, within 3 to 6 months, you will not be sacrificing any lifestyle. The difference is you'll no longer be treading water or you'll no longer be running on a treadmill feeling like you're not getting further ahead. This is just a key thing to do.
Yeah, that's, The Richest Man in Babylon, I grew up reading books like that. My father would, I won't say force feed them to me, but that's what I started reading at a very young age. And I always did 10%.
Yeah, the book talks about 10%, which is just written before we had the type of technological change that we do.
Yeah, I'm switching. I'm switching today.
Yeah, and written before we had the type of inflation that we do. That's why I'm up to 15, is to address technological change and inflation. Those are the things that when that book was written, they just didn't have those issues. But thank you, centralized banking and the Fed, for helping us inflate the hell out of our money so that we have to continue to save more.
Well, yeah, no kidding. Jeez. So you've dropped a boatload of knowledge. People after this call, you're going to be selling a lot more books, I hope. A boatload, because they can't. This is not enough. We need to be on this call, and I can't be, and you can't be, but we need to be on this call for like 12 hours, type of thing. So what I want to do now is I want to grab, since we've touched a lot of different bases, if you can give, and you may use one of what you just said, but I want to give like 3, I call them like gold bars.
Okay.
And I think you're really, dropping, like the gold mountain here, but 3 gold bars and an actionable step, or you can just give 3 actionable steps just today, like the 18% I kind of mentioned, but, give 3 because I want people to take action today. I don't want them to wait till tomorrow or the next day because tomorrow never shows up for anybody anyway.
So first one will be text 801-396-7211, 801-396-7211. Put WWRD in the subject line, and I'll gift you a copy on me of What Would the Rockefellers Do. Since Josh didn't even know it existed, I figure I better get it in people's hands. So 801-396-7211, WWRD.
Awesome.
The reason that book will be significant and be a gold bar for you is it has the framework of how the Rockefellers have gone 6 generations on with passing money on, and the Vanderbilts had more money than the U.S. Treasury and weren't able to actually pass it on. So that's going to be a pretty key distinction. The second thing, we did talk about 4 types of expenses. We talked about the wealth capture account, but this is substantial. If you could save taxes, that's like getting a 10-year leap. What I mean by a 10-year leap is if you could save taxes today, that's money to the bottom line. It doesn't have to pay employees. It doesn't have to go through overhead. It's just cash in your pocket minus whatever you pay the accountant. To try to get that same amount of money in your pocket from an investment that comes in and year out, it's going to take a while. It's going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take, but if you can get that money in your hands right now because you save taxes, that's a 10-year leap. So you're just getting that money now, and almost, I call it capitalization, as if you had that money earning money for you, you're just getting money back. So then the third thing is distinguishing between 2 factors. Number 1, when I say invest in yourself, what I really mean is invest in your sole purpose, which is your, clarity around your values, your key abilities, and then your passions, but combined for a container or a vision that matters to you, a purpose that drives you. And when things are aligned with that, you'll be energized. And when they're not, it's going to be more effort. Now, it's effort to find your soul purpose. It's effort to do things aligned with it because life will tug at you. But the second layer here is you got to figure out your investor DNA. So when you stop investing, not that you should never stop investing, but when you start allocating investments outside of yourself into the world, whether that's, if you went into the tax liens or hard money lending or stocks or real estate, make sure it's aligned with your investor DNA. Make sure it's something that you have knowledge around, because if not, you're taking risk, and risk will destroy return, not enhance it. So you don't invest in everything. Invest in the things that are aligned with you. Invest in the things that make sense based upon your knowledge, and be willing to sit in cash for extended periods of time until the right opportunity comes, and forget people that say, oh, well, inflation's going to destroy that. Well, you know what destroys money faster than inflation? Shitty investments. Yeah. So
yeah,
don't make it, you're better off not making the bad investment and let inflation tug at your money for a minute.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you first for giving that book away. I appreciate it. I mean, they're going to get that, then they're going to get Killing Sacred Cows, and then they're going to connect with you every way, shape, and form. You and the Wealth Factory. So I really do appreciate it, Garrett. I don't think I have any other questions. I got to marinate in this stuff now. Also, I got to re-listen to what we just spoke about, since I've been watching your YouTubes and all these different things for the past week again. And so for myself, from Locker Nation, Lifestyle Locker Radio, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for participating, saying yes, and helping people change their money mindset. Because, here we want people to unleash their human potential, and part of their potential is got to be money. It's got to be. That mindset's got to be right. And so again, thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.
And I look forward to maybe grabbing you another time and getting you on again down the road when you start hitting some of those bigger goals than you've already hit. When you rent the house in Italy for 6 months, we'll have another conversation.
All right, man. Thanks for your energy and your contribution, your commitment, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Garrett.
Hey, take care.
All right. Thanks, bud. Talk to you soon. There you have it, Locker Nation. Garrett Gunderson dropping some serious knowledge bombs. Make sure you do connect with him on wealthfactory.com. Follow some of his action steps, and we'll give you more contact info for him on the show notes. So make sure you check them out. And if you made it this far through the show, listening to the post roll here, connect with me on facebook.com/lifestyle locker, and also myself personally at Dr. Josh Hant on Instagram. And one last thing, Locker Nation, give us a 5-star review on iTunes and or Stitcher Radio. I normally don't mention that one, but we'd like them on both. And connect with us, guys. We love to participate. Look forward. The website will be up very shortly. It's in the process now. Talk to you soon. And until next time, unleash your human potential by becoming human-powered. And with Garrett Gunderson, get on your money mindset.